Thank you for joining us on More Than That, a podcast where we dive a little bit deeper into what was preached on Sunday morning. We hope that this is enriching to your walk with Christ and that you love God and people that much more so that we can extend the glory of God to the people He has placed in our lives. So buckle up and enjoy the conversation. Hey church, welcome back to More Than That. This week, I was super excited because as soon as I figured out and learned that Eddie was coming, I got excited. One of my favorite people from the islands.
Sure.
You're the only person, you and your family are the only people that I've ever met from the islands, but
For
still.
now.
For now, yes, you've been trying to get me there.
Yes.
I have a feeling it's going to happen at some point.
At some point. For sure.
We took a little sidestep in our series on John this past week, and we our little excursus, whatever you want to call it, was in Psalm 2. So Eddie, you had Psalm 2. If there was any extra time that you had with the church on Sunday morning, things get cut due to time, or there's little interesting things that you're reading and preparation. You're like, that's really cool, but it doesn't fit where I want to take the church. But it's still really cool, and I wish I could share it. What would that thing be?
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Tyler, and this vast audience that you have at City Church and online on YouTube, especially more than that. Well, I saw a couple of the things that I wanted actually to share with the church, but as you said, there is a lot of information in this coronation psalm. I think one of the most important one that I would like to bring up is this last portion here in the fourth point that we worked on the response of the leaders or the nations in terms of the Son, because we are seeing here that the whole psalm is built around the introduction and the installation of the Son, which is connected to the Davidic lineage that was being honored and being celebrated. But at the same time, you had the reaction of the nation and the leaders to his coronation. So the verses 10 through verse 12 would be where I would like to camp a little bit, just to bring up a couple things, and we can jumpstart from there. When it says, "So now, kings, be wise, receive instruction, you judges of the earth. Serve the Lord with reverential awe and rejoice with trembling. Pay homage." Some versions have it, "kiss the king," to the Son, or he will be angry. "And you will perish in your rebellion, for his anger may ignite at any moment. All who take refuge in him are happy." So there is this kind of contradiction, or not contradiction, but contrast that is here, and that is part of what we call in when we look at the poetic nature of this psalm and the structure of this psalm is a contrast parallelism. It's contrasting what would happen at the end, if contrasting with the leader's reaction or the leader's response. And then it is contrast with what would happen at the end if the leaders respond with humility. So I think that's one of the main things that I would like for, to draw this contrast here, to see what should be our response now if we move away from the immediate context to the more historical, canonical context in redemptive history. We now come to understand that the New Testament interpret this psalm in light of the Messianic King, which would be Jesus Christ. So I think it also shows us the response that we should have, or the response that we should have, the way we should, let me say it that way, the way we should respond to the authority and to who Jesus Christ is today. So I don't know if you have any thing that you want us to develop from there, but that's what I wanted to highlight.
I'm not I'm not a poetry guy. So when you say contrast parallelism, like that is a totally foreign concept to me.
Okay.
And I just think that that's because for me, poetry, I get it. It's very beautiful, and I love the imagery with it.
Exactly.
But it's just not something that immediately I'm drawn to. Like some people are, and it's absolutely wonderful. Like I know Raphael loves the Psalms. He loves poetry and all of this stuff, and I'm like, good for you.
Certainly.
But that's the beauty of the body of Christ is there's different aspects of humanity that when we come together we get a full picture. And we get all of the different little idiosyncrasies, like the poetry and then the kind of more literalism and of maybe something like a narrative or a dialectic style where it's a lot more literal with some metaphors and stuff and language play as well. But yeah, so that contrast parallelism, never heard of that before in my life. So are there any, from your understanding and reading of just the Bible, are there any other instances off the top of your head where you can think of, here's another good example of contrast parallelism? Just because if it's new for me, I'm sure it's probably new for a whole lot of other people as well.
Okay. Well, we can go back to Psalm 1, which is a very important example, which connects actually in the Hebrew language or the Hebrew scholars, they would read Psalm 1 along with Psalm 2. They would not separate it historically. And it is also a contrast parallelism in the sense that you can identify when it uses this statement, like, how happy is the man who does not walk in the advice. I'm trying to recall it from my head. I have it here, so let me see. Walk in the advice of the wicked. And then when you come now to verse 4, and then he said, in verse 3, he's like a tree planted beside flowing streams that bears its fruits in its season, and its leaf does not wither. Whatever he does prosper. Then there is the contrast here now. But it is not so for the wicked. So that is the contrast parallelism.
Okay, yeah, I see what it is. So you're kind of pitting two things against each other and emphasizing, in this case, the good, the godly, opposed to the ungodly.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's it. And
showing more the how they're parallel in terms of like they run parallel lines, but they kind of run opposite.
They go in different directions. Yeah. So the outcome is that. So when we look at the verse 10 now in Psalm 2, we see that this same parallelism or contrast is being drawn. So, if you guys accept wisdom, going back to Psalm 1, which is that wisdom literature as well, a psalm of wisdom, we see that trickles down in verse 10 of Psalm 2. So now, kings, be wise. So the invitation is for them to be wise and receive the instruction. So the instruction here is to actually submit to the king.
Yeah.
Even though they didn't like it, or even though they didn't agree with the installation and the anointing of the king before them, they are invited to submit to him. Yeah. So that's what this contrast is being made here. And then he said that what would happen, the outcome is that your rebellion, I'm going to outpour my anger, my wrath. So that's the contrast there.
Yeah. That was a good segue into the submission thing. So, that was, I don't know if that was planned or not, but you did that well.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because you did mention submission in the sermon, and that was one of the things I wanted to bring up, because you said something along the lines of, to submit to the Father, you must submit to the Son. And the Son here is that king that's being installed. Honestly, I got two daughters. We are in this Frozen kick, and whenever you said coronation, like I played like Frozen, one of the opening scenes in Frozen where she like sits up, she's like, "It's coronation day."
It's coronation day, definitely.
Oh, goodness, this is where my mind goes now because I have daughters.
Definitely. Oh man, that's so funny.
So the Son is installed as king, and this is Jesus. So how do we deal with this whole idea of submission to the king who also submits? Like, because that's, for us, especially in a modern context, we don't think of a king submitting to anyone. They're more of like a dictator, or like just the sole monarch, however you want to place it. Like, they are the power, and nothing else is above them. But what we see here is that the Son submits to the Father, especially in the New Testament. We see Jesus submitting to his Father. So how do we wrestle with that? Because that's hard, because that's also some Trinitarian language and metaphors kind of put in there.
Definitely.
So,
okay, well, I think this is where most of our church fathers have gotten this historical view that is very prominent in the Orthodox tradition of monarchianism, monarchical view of the Trinity. And I think that's where most of the references will be at.
Okay.
But in the immediate context is installing someone that is anointed and someone that is going to continue with the promises that the Lord made. But we can jump further on, and we can see that the Son submit to the Father because they are one. They share that same authority. They share well, not exactly the same essence here as in Psalm 2, but they share that unified vision and work that they are meant to do. Because you can see here in the Son's, even in the testimony, as the Son speak, in verse 7, he said, I will declare the Lord's decree. So he said to me, you are my Son. Today I have become your Father. Ask of me. So what we need to analyze here in Psalm 2 is the context. The context is that the Son is being installed by God himself. So when the Lord speak to the nations and the leaders, he's speaking to them because they are rebelling against his authority, his installment. I am the one who did that. So the Son did not promote himself, but I was the one who did that. It kind of reminds me of Philippians 2. That picture that once he's actually equal to the Father, but he did not consider himself equal to the Father. And there is a big theological word that the fathers they use. He kenosis. He emptied out himself. He poured himself. So the picture there that is my answer to the question that you made. The Son is the Son in his authority and his divinity. He emptied out himself, taking up the form of man so that he can come and fulfill the work. I think that is the same picture that is going on here.
That's interesting. So we were also, you and I are you a member of VPS? Is that okay? So I couldn't remember, but Sunday you and I were talking about it.
Exactly.
And that was one of the papers that
was presented.
Okay. Talked about some of this kenosis stuff. I didn't actually go to. I just kind of heard it summarized. But it was basically the power, the omnipotence as the power to do something. It's like, that's interesting. So God has the power to divest himself, and that gives him the ultimate power because he's got the ability to do it, which is how the incarnation can help. It can help make sense of the incarnation. So it was just really interesting how, thinking about, a divesting of
his essence, his totality. So
just everything that makes God. It's not that he necessarily potentially didn't cut it off completely, but he had the ability to take it on and off at will.
He's absolute control there. So that's the picture.
Because one of the things that we didn't want to do, especially with, and I think it's one of the dangers with monarchianism, is subordinationism. Which is just, for those of you, that's a big theological term. That just means that the Father is the top, and then the Son is subordinate to the Father, and that the Spirit is subordinate to the Father and the Son. So that it can, I guess I could see it being a little bit of a slippery slope, but it's also, I can also see it not if you hold it firmly, because we don't want to like fall into subordinationism, because it does toss sameness of nature potentially under the bus, and we don't want to do that. Yeah. We want to stay as far away from separating the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in their essence or in the most fundamental pieces of themselves. So. So that's just one of those things where we have to be aware of as a church to not do that. Exactly. And I think that submission is a really good way to think about it, because we need to bring our bodies into submission. But I know that we're not our body.
Right.
If that was the case, then we'd have some other issues. But we're not our body, but our body is a part of us. I think Aristotle and Thomas were correct, where we are a unity. So, but I'm not only my body. I'm not only my mind or my soul. I'm a unity of the two, and we need to make sure that as we bring our bodies and our minds under submission to Christ, like 2 Corinthians 10:5 calls us to do. And plus, I mean the entire Bible talks about bringing our body into submission to God. But as we bring our body under the submission of our mind, that doesn't mean that necessarily that they're separate. They are separate things fundamentally, but they're not separate in terms of unity. Exactly. So what one does, the other does as well.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the point that I was making on Sunday, was exactly that. The point I was trying to convey was the following: like, we often want the Father, but we want the Father without the Son. Yeah. You know what I mean? And the Son made it clear for us that we cannot get to the Father except through the Son.
Yes.
So in essence, what Psalm 2 is actually explicating for us is the following concept: is like, if you are rebelling against the Son, you are literally rebelling against the Father's sovereignty and His authority and what He has established. So they wanted to reverse. They actually wanted to reverse that. So submission comes into play there, because it helps us to understand that the Father, just the picture here in Psalm 2 of the Father installing, like, hey, I started out the sermon with that scene from the Lion King, where they are celebrating, they're having that great celebration or coronation of the son who will become the heir. Yeah. And that celebration simply means that he is king. Probably he's not exercising his kingship right now, but he has the authority because he's son of Mufasa, so that's the same picture I think that we can draw here in Psalm 2.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the other things that you did bring up was that nothing catches God by surprise, which I think, at its face, I don't think that ruffles many feathers.
Okay.
But whenever you start thinking about it, that's when you're like, okay, what do I do with that? What's the best way to make sense of this phrase, nothing catches God by surprise? Because, I mean, classically, God is omniscient. He knows everything. But there's different ways that people have, throughout history, even this debate isn't settled. So, there's so the big term is omniscience. So how would you define omniscience?
He knows it all. I think that's the best way. But the idea that I was working on when I made that statement was the sovereignty of God.
Yes.
I was solely focusing on God's sovereignty, because often in our culture, and even us in the church, we forget that God is sovereign. Like, even though things are happening, and as I said, he's relaxed because he's enthroned. Yeah. So the picture is that God is on his throne, sovereign, ruling, and He knows everything. He knows why they are reacting like that. He knows the end from their beginning. The beginning is that you guys are jumping up and down and fighting against what I've established. At the end of the day, it's not going to be pretty for you. So I want you to reform. So even though He knows it all, and He knows our reaction, and He knows what will happen within that journey and trajectory, He came to us. He came to us so that I call it the awakening could happen. So the incarnation is what He wanted for the world to understand. Hey, you need to be awakened to the fact that if you continue on this trajectory, it's not going to be pretty good for you.
Which is a good way to work out, sovereignty, because that's also another buzzword that some people just really you can't really get away from it, but it's a buzzword that people don't like because whenever they think sovereignty, they might think, especially
that's good.
I kind of think that we're in just in Pennsylvania. For some reason I lump us in with New England. I don't know why, but with I think, was it John Owen or Edwards?
In New England.
I forget. I'm not big on church history, especially Puritans. I know that they wrote a lot, but I'm just not big on them.
I don't.
But I know at least one of them was from New England and
pastoring there. Jonathan Edwards.
It was Edwards. Okay, so just that influence of Edwards with having a very strong sense of divine sovereignty. So there's a really strong sense in what God decrees will happen. But then there's other ways of thinking about it, of middle knowledge and then open, that the future is open, or it's called open theism, which Larry ended up bringing up at one point during a sermon, which I thought was interesting. I was like, wow, that's a $10,000 word that I didn't expect to hear today.
How did it go?
It went okay.
Held things into balance.
Just to kind of contrast some things is why I brought it up. But
what do you mean by open theism?
So open theism really just kind of helps. It really just pertains to the just the theory of knowledge that God has, pertaining to specifically God's omniscience. So what does God know? So open theism, which is on the exact opposite of decretal theology or a strong sense of a decree, is that open theism says that as time progresses, God is quote unquote learning new things, and that He doesn't necessarily know the future, but it doesn't surprise Him when it does. Which is why it fits in with that nothing surprises God, because God knows us so well that He's not surprised at what this next little bit is. And then middle knowledge is this idea that not that the future's open, but God knows what we would do in all of these other scenarios that we might find ourselves in. So the best way to think about it is, if you and I were to get coffee after this, God knows where we would go. It hasn't happened yet. It may or may not happen, but God knows where we would go if that was the case, and where we would not go. He knows all. He knows all of those things.
Exactly.
And then on the stronger sense of it, so middle knowledge and open. I'm going to call it open knowledge for now.
Okay.
Because there's more to open theism. But open knowledge and middle knowledge they're softer, going from open knowledge as the softest and getting a little stronger with middle knowledge, and then the strongest is this sense of what God decrees will happen. So another way to talk about that is determinism. Which I go back and forth on. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. I think that's part of the human predicament.
C.S. Lewis then.
Yeah. I'm an apologist. I'm okay with being connected with C.S. Lewis.
Okay.
So that's kind of the two different things. So how, given what we see here in Psalm 2, is there a way that we could understand God's omniscience in terms of these three? Like, which exegetically, where would you say that that the passage is leading us?
Exactly. I think the passage is leading us to that ultimate point of submission to God's decree.
Okay.
That's where the exegetically where we can conclude as to what Psalm 2 is leading us. But at the same time, we see that mankind can react against God's established will and decree. But even though when they do react, you notice that in Psalm 2, God is still enthroned.
Yeah.
Psalmist wants us to understand that God is still enthroned. So he's not shocked. He's not alarmed by their reaction because he's enthroned. He's sovereign. However, the psalmist helps us to understand that the Lord speaks to them in his anger. So what the psalmist is helping us to understand with these kind of terms that we have just explained and developed, is psalmist wants us to understand God is sovereign. God knows what's going to happen. God knows what would happen. But God, in his sovereignty, he comes to us in our lack and limited knowledge.
Yeah.
So that is the point where I think we often forget as human beings. We have limited knowledge. So we compare God with our limited knowledge.
Yeah.
And what Psalms 2 is showing us is that, hey, God is overall, he's in control and he's sovereign and he knows what would happen. But in his sovereignty, he can descend. So that in our limited knowledge, we can come to the point of realize that our path is leading us to a direction that is totally parallel to him and different than his. So he wants to correct us and to bring us back into the right path.
Yeah, I like that because there's a little bit of a conditional here, and that's where it may is that what the contrast parallelism?
Exactly.
A little bit of like a conditional.
Exactly.
Okay. See, you just had to put it in philosophical terms, and I would have understood it. But in verse 12, it says, "Pay homage to the Son, or he will be angry." There's a condition there. If you don't pay homage to the Son,
yes, sir,
he'll be angry.
But
then if we do pay homage, he won't be angry. So there's that. You know, what would happen? What would happen if we don't pay homage? Exactly. So there's a lot of things here in terms of what God knows and his sovereignty that I mean some people take a harder stance on the like a strong version, the middle knowledge and the open side, and they're like, yeah, like middle knowledge and open, like they're definitely not kosher. They're not good doctrines to hold.
We need to do a podcast on that so that we can actually explain people.
Yeah,
that very important. But for now, what I would say though is this point here that is, as you brought it up. You know, I think that we actually need to do a podcast to explain people about middle knowledge and open theism and God's sovereignty and how has the church historical has actually viewed these things. Because we don't have agreement. We need to understand that we, as believers, we don't have. We have different theological giants and men of great respect that hold different views. Like some hold the middle knowledge, some hold open theism, and some what we call reformed in full sovereignty in that sense. So we need to kind of walk people through that those concepts in a very practical and applicable way. But what I want to make mention here is that condition that is being made. You know, he's explaining. Look, guys, I'm putting two ways before you. It's like what Jesus said in Matthew 7, if I'm not mistaken, verse 25 through verse 27, when he talks about the man that whoever hears my word and put it into practice is like the man who built his house on the rock.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. I think it's also in Luke.
Luke, okay.
I mean, Luke, there's a lot of parallels between Luke and Matthew.
Exactly. So there is Luke actually, and there is Matthew who recorded the words of Jesus as he made that statement at the end of what we know as the Sermon on the Mount.
Yes.
That's the closing argument. I say, okay, I've laid everything before you now. I'm going to give you two paths.
Yeah, which one are you going to take?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's
and
how.
and that's where that condition is met. And some people like to throw in like, just because, you know, tulip is a big thing, the unconditional election is where it's like unconditional, like we don't have to do anything. There's nothing that we can do to merit salvation. But there is a condition that we need to, that does need to be met, and that we need to be a part of the family of God.
Amen.
And do with that what you will. But that's,
But the invitation is there, though, for the audience. Is like, you need to submit. That's what you need to do.
Yeah, we need to submit, or the way that one of my favorite bands of all time for today.
Okay.
Big metalcore band.
Okay.
It's just a really simple song. I forget what it's called, but the only lyrics of the song are "repent or perish." So I'm like,
wow, that's it.
That's it. That's the entire song. It's like, here we go. There's the submit or perish.
And the condition is there. You gotta accept it, or you are going to experience the outcome of it. You know? So
exactly. So just to kind of finish up this last thought on the whole thing, just when it comes to the different views that we all hold, I think it's important to realize that we need to do, Gavin Ortland calls it triage. We need to do triage when it comes to these different forms of thinking about God, thinking about church and theology and all of these things. We need to do triage to make sure that, hey, we're not condemning or casting out this person because they simply think different about something that we might consider to be top tier, when in reality it might not be. So maybe, like, in terms of omniscience, the question is really, are we affirming God's omniscience, or are we denying it? I would say that's an either or. Wow, but then now we have different ways of thinking about it, and then we can get into the question of, okay, are you actually affirming this or not? Because there might be a desire to affirm, but you're practically denying it.
Wow,
so
good.
those type of things, we just need to be careful whenever we, especially publicly, like we're doing right now, and which is why I wanted to bring these up, because there's debate, but then there's also, I know some Christians that love Jesus, but they're open theists.
Okay.
So it's like, I'm not gonna say you're not a Christian, because I know you, I know the fruit, and I know all of these other things about your walk with Jesus that just scream, you are a disciple. So we just need to be careful. And same on the exact opposite end of the spectrum with the stronger sense of sovereignty and omniscience, like wonderful men and women of God.
Amen.
And we need to not divide so harshly over it. We live in the same house, guys. If you need to go to your room to calm down, go to your room to calm down.
Father speaking here now.
Yes. There's many times where I've had to do that. I'm sure you have as well. But when it comes to all of these things, with Psalm 2, the biggest thing that I honestly took away from it was that submit to the Father. To submit to the Father, we must submit to the Son, because He is the King. So that's the biggest thing that I took away from it. So, which is always humbling to think about.
That's good.
So, are there any last words for us before? Because I do want to like have you give our audience a little bit of an update and a way to follow what's going on at San Andreas and with the alternative and all of that stuff. So last words, and then I'm going to let you close out with a little bit of an update and how to get a hold of you.
Okay, my last word is that, as I said, in a practical, applicational way on Sunday, was the fact that we need to be people that don't compromise our convictions and our values. I like the image that is being portrayed in this Psalm, verse 2, when the psalmist declare, or the son speak, and he said, I will declare or proclaim the decree of my father. And he said, who the father said he is. And I want us to keep that in mind, keep our identity, and keep our, not only the message, but our mission and our identity. Our identity is that we have a message and we have a mission, and we should not compromise it because of cultural relevance and acceptance. We need to stay firm, and we need to live out our identity in a culture of confusion, as we highlighted on Sunday, and I know pretty well you know as well. New ideas and ways and forms of thinking that are influencing believers, and is causing them to drift away from their identity. My heart is that we as believers would continue in practicing our values and our conviction without being ashamed, knowing that we are children of God. So that is the most important thing that I would like to leave with the church and to the audience.
Awesome. So give us a little bit of an update. What doesn't have to be super long. What's going on the island, and how can they follow up or follow what's going on the island, or maybe even get a hold of you to better pray for you guys?
Yes. Well, an update in terms of ministry. In terms of ministry, we have been expanding and growing, and we are praying for a property. Currently, we are undergoing a conversation to see if we can get a property, but unfortunately it's taking longer than what we were expecting, due to the fact that there are some legal procedures that we need to follow up with, and some governmental procedure as well that has halted the process for us to finalize that deal. But right now, what we are seeing is that we are actually growing, and we are moving in that direction. We are establishing men's group. In terms of the island, socially and politically speaking, I covet the prayers of believers and saints, especially here at City Church and those that are connected to City Church. We have a lot of violence going on. We have a lot of drug trafficking still on the island, a lot of kids that have lost their sense of who they are, and they are following up with the influence of the culture. And so we need to keep our island in prayer for that. And as we continue to expand in leadership and building men, we want to build men that will become example for our young men in our island, so that they would see that there is a path worth follow. A path worth follow. So that's basically what I can summarize shortly for us. But that's what has been going on there on the island. We have a lot of political upheaval. We have a lot of social situation going on with violence and crime. And as we were about to record, I share with you that somebody got killed. Another teenager got killed on the island. So that's been a great concern for me, because I was also in those trenches, and the Lord saved me from it, and I am praying for that among them as well.
Yeah. So what's the best way to follow what's going on the island, and potentially even get a hold of you just for updates and like more personal and pastoral updates? Exactly.
Certainly. We have a Facebook page. We are working on a web page right now. Our Facebook page is The Alternative Side. We have a Facebook page. We have YouTube, and we have Instagram. So if you would like to connect with us, just go through our Facebook page, or you can look me up on Facebook as Eddie Williams Nelson, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's it.
That's it? Okay.
I think so.
Okay, so you can find me as that. So if you want more update about our church and our island, then I would love to be able to communicate with whoever would like to do that.
Awesome. I know. I always look forward to. I see your stuff pop up on my Facebook, and I'm like, oh, Eddie called me, or Eddie's getting a hold of me. Okay, this is gonna be good. Because we kind of speak our own language.
Yes, definitely.
You guys got a little bit of a taste of it today.
Definitely.
It gets even it gets even worse. But Eddie, thanks for making the trip up here. I know I personally look forward to every New Year. Every New Year's, because you're here like clockwork. But also just I love hearing and seeing all the different things that are going on in the island through the Facebook and the Instagram and all that stuff. And it's really awesome to hear, because I didn't know that until Sunday, that you guys are going through the process of getting a property and a building and all that stuff. So that was like music to my ears. But thank you for making the trip. Thank you for taking the time to unpack Psalm 2 and do a really good job of relating it back to our current series.
Yes,
so we just want to remind you to, follow the alternative. Get a hold of Eddie if you have that desire. Pray for him and Kesh and the kids and the entirety of the alternative. But also, this conversation that we had is not the sermon. If you're listening on the podcast, the sermon is going to be one podcast earlier. If you are watching on YouTube, that is going to be under Psalm 2, and you could probably search Eddie Williams on the search bar on our YouTube channel. So please do that if you did not listen to the sermon, because it's going to make a whole lot more sense if you do that. Also, this is not a replacement for being in a local church. You pastor a local church on the islands. We're here in Williamsport, and it's beautiful. Even though it's beautiful to see the two churches come together, they are very separate things, doing very awesome things separately. Yes, but it's all contextual. What is needed in that area, and wherever you're at, if you're having a hard time finding a church, please let us know. If you're on the island, right there, sit next to him. Yes. Go see Eddie. If you're on the island, go see Eddie. If you're in anywhere else, we have Eddie, myself, or Raphael, whoever it is. We have connections with all of these great, healthy local churches, and we want to get you hooked in and just embedded into a good local community. So please get a hold of us if you're struggling to do that. So Eddie, again, I just want to thank you again for all of this.
Honor to always be with you.
So thank you again, everyone, and we will see you next week. God bless.